All right, you might think this is the craziest idea that you've ever heard. But what if you sold your MSP to your employees really slowly over a number of years? In fact, what if that was your exit plan? So instead of selling out to one of the big consolidators or a local competitor or a venture capitalist group, instead you pass it over to your employees, but you do it really slowly. You get the key people to buy into the business and you lock them into your business long before you're ready to go. Maybe you think that's a sensible idea, maybe you think it's a crazy idea, but it's something that my special guest today is doing, and I'm delighted to welcome him onto the podcast to explain to you why it's something you should consider.
Hi, I'm Eric Brotman. I'm the Chairman and Chief Growth Officer of BFG Financial Advisors, and I'm here to educate MSPs on how to get money out of your business and into your personal pockets and do it in a tax-friendly way.
Oh, I love that. I mean, that in itself, we could just spend the whole podcast talking about how to get more money out of your business. And just as a heads up, because we do have listeners and viewers all around the world, we're not going to be talking about specific US or UK tax laws. No one wants to hear about specific tax regulations. We're doing big picture items here of how you can get money out. Do you know what, Eric, I think would be cool as well is if we can start to look towards the end of an MSP's career. And I don't mean their business, something horrible happening to it. I mean retirement, that happy day when you sell the business, you dance off into the sunset, go and buy a yacht, whatever it is that people do. I think it'd be really cool to talk about how us as business owners, because we're all business owners here, how can we maximize our business while we've got it, and how can we maximize our retirement? That would be really cool to talk about. So thank you for joining us on the show today. Just give us a sort of a brief overview of you. I mean, what is it that makes a man wake up in the morning and think, I want to be a financial advisor?
You know, it was a complete accident. I got into this business over 30 years ago. I was planning to go to law school. I enjoyed estate planning and wealth transfer and thought that was my path. And I fell in love with the financial business, and the rest is history. So now I'm building an organization. We're teaching individuals, business owners, families about financial literacy. I'm writing books and podcasting and doing as much as I can to get the word out that financial independence is attainable and that it's mostly based on behavior, not circumstance. So we're just trying to change the narrative. And for business owners, that there are a lot of particulars that we can take advantage of. It's worth doing.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. So this year is my 20th anniversary 21st anniversary actually as a business owner. And I completely agree with you. I think, and I have a little bit of wealth that I've built over those years. I completely agree with you. It's based on behavior more than anything else. What are some of the things that you see business owners doing that hold themselves back, financially and B, actually promote themselves and build their wealth?
Well, the things that hold business owners back, a lot of times it's a scarcity mindset instead of an abundance mindset. It begins with attitude, and it begins with recognizing that even competitors in your space can teach you something, and that we don't have to necessarily be afraid of other providers or other folks in our space. I also think that there's a tendency for business owners to reinvest so much in their business that they don't actually extract assets or wealth from the business and get it into their personal world, which means you're constantly risking almost every penny to your name on the business being successful in an ongoing way. And businesses come and go, industries come and go. So it's really important, just like any corporate executive who owns stock in ABC company, whatever it is, just like they need to diversify away from their own stock, so do business owners. So we have to take some of the fruit of our labor. And of course, you're going to reinvest in the business, you're going to grow the business, you're going to market the business, all those things, and that's important. But you also have to get some money out of the business and into your family's net worth, or you're taking an enormous amount of very focused risk. So I would say those are the two big downsides. One is attitude, and the other is the behavior of reinvesting everything and not diversifying. In terms of the things that work, I think the biggest determinant to creating a business that's going to monetize ultimately and change your life to make you financially independent is beginning your succession planning very early. And I know that sounds strange because a lot of business owners in our 30s and 40s aren't thinking about that. I started selling stock in my own company in my 30s. People thought I was nuts, Paul. But now there are 8 other owners here. We have a large roster of folks who can't wait to buy me out. Not that they want me gone, but that they realize that this business will go on beyond my lifetime. And that's exciting. That's a legacy. So that feels good emotionally, but it's also financially, it's a really smart move at the end of the day because I can sell gradually and that's good for tax planning. You don't have to take a huge lump sum and get clobbered no matter what country you're in. And at the same time, you can set your own course, set your own pace. You don't have to I don't feel like I'll ever be forced out. I have the opportunity to decide how much I want to do, how much do I want to work. I don't believe in retirement. I know that sounds crazy because I do financial planning. I think retirement's brutal and no one should do it because I think a lot of people look at retirement as the end of something, but not the beginning of something. I think you're retired if you're financially independent enough that you're working for fun and that you're doing something you love that brings you purpose and brings you joy. And yes, it might still make you money, but at the point where you don't need it to make you money, you're retired even if you're busy and even if you're still laboring in some capacity.
Yeah. Do you know, so much to unpack from everything that you said there. I agree with everything you said. I love the idea of selling little parts of your business as you go through your career. And I own 100% of my business, the MSP Marketing Edge, but and I enjoy the power. I was going to say power. It is power. I enjoy the power and the control that goes with that because I can do what I want to do. But and I'm only 51, so I'm nowhere near finished yet. But I can completely see the power of bringing on people and selling small parts of the business because actually that gives that business new, renewed energy from people who care about it. They've got as much skin in the game as you have. And it was interesting you talking about business owners going through their lives not taking money out. And I'm not going to name the type of business, but before I worked with MSPs, I worked with some other kind of businesses. And there was this one particular business owner that I used to meet on a monthly basis. And I always used to think they weren't doing very well. They were a bit dowdy, always looked a bit scruffy. The kind of person you'd look at and you think, oh, those clothes are due, going to the thrift store, charity shop as we call them here. And then one day they dropped a little bombshell to me that they'd never really taken any money out of the business. They had £1 million in the bank, which is about 1.3 million US dollars. And the whole room was just kind of stunned and just stared at this person and couldn't believe. And this person had spent 30 years just doing business every day, taking out the minimum amount. They were driven by fear and what their CPA, their accountant, had said of take as little as you can. And of course, by the time you're in your 60s with £1 million in the bank, which is built up over 30 years, well, you and I know that £1 million in the bank in the business, which is doing nothing, could have been £2 to £3 to £4 million of their own personal assets by that point. And let's look at that because that's another way of looking at this. I mean, we will have people listening to this podcast and watching this on YouTube who are in all sorts of financial states. So we'll have those that literally don't have a dollar to pay the bill that's coming in tomorrow. And then we'll have those that have loads of cash in the bank and there's a scarcity mindset or a fear and everything in between. So you talked about selling little parts of your business as you go along. If you hadn't taken that strategy, are there other strategies that you would have taken as you grew your business and went through your 30s, 40s, 50s?
The reality is I would have less choice now. The only option, if you don't sell gradually, at least, and it's not specific to our industry in general, if you don't sell gradually and find a large group of internal employees, coworkers, colleagues who want to take the financial risk to buy the stock, it's never given, it's always sold. But if you don't do that, then you will have built an asset, if you've done well, that'll be too valuable for anyone in your organization to be able to afford, which means you are now stuck at the mercy of private equity or of an exit strategy that will eliminate the legacy you wanted to leave behind. You'll make money. You'll make money on the back end. Maybe you'll even make more money. Sometimes you walk away from some of the big dollars or pounds if you do it a little too soon. But I think the benefits of doing it gradually outweigh the super paycheck that could come at the end of the rainbow if you sell to that private equity firm. I don't want our employees, our clients, our vendors, any of our relationships to suffer because I went for the big check. That to me is, I couldn't live with myself. I would much rather have people who are aligned. You talked about it as power. Power is not necessarily something that you give up. It's something that you share. And a lot of times, all of us as entrepreneurs think that we have a monopoly on good ideas. And I'm here to let you in on a secret that we don't. And that sometimes it's better to cast a wider net and to get ideas from lots of different places. And the other thing is you tend to lose some of your very best employees if they don't have a vested interest in the success and a possibility of biting the apple of equity. You don't want to lose your best people. You want to make sure that those folks are on the bus for the long term. So, like you, I'm 54 years old. I got a lot of gas in this tank. I'm never retiring. But I stepped down as CEO of the firm that I started January 1st of 26. This just happened. And it was the best thing I ever did. I spent 2 years helping the new CEO transition in. I still own a large percentage of the company, not a controlling interest because no one has a controlling interest, but a meaningful interest that financially is important to me. And we've been able to transition the leadership here to a team that is younger than I am and that's going to do an incredible job. And I can work as much or as little as I feel like. And if it's not fun, I tell everybody, if it's not fun, I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. And I'm going to sidestep you calling me a power control freak or insinuating I'm a power control freak. Actually, you're right. You're right. You're right. Anyway, I'll go with that. No, I love. I absolutely.
Yeah. I didn't. Okay, so I was in the state. I was a micromanager, and here's the thing, Paul. I don't know how many employees you have, but I was a horrendous boss. I think I'm a terrific mentor, coach, consultant, ally, advocate, terrible boss. I haven't managed people in years. I love working with them. I help being a career builder. I love getting people to the next level for themselves professionally. I don't like supervising humans. So, we all have blind spots, and that's one of mine.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not a micromanager. That's we've got 13 of us here, and I don't like managing either. But my strategy for that is to hire adults with families, and we're all remote. And I just we set clear boundaries and what we're trying to achieve and goals, and I just let them get on with it. And that's another way. That's the thing. We've all got different ways of achieving the same thing. I was only joking, by the way, when I said you called me a control freak. I am a control freak. I know that, but I'm in remission, so it's okay. So I completely agree with you about the big payout, and actually within the channel right now, as you know, there are all these super MSPs going around. This is a great time to sell an MSP. There's so much corporate money, so much VC money right now, but the downside of that is legacy, is the instant death of any legacy to your business. And some people, they just want the money, they want the exit, they want the reward for 20 years hard work, and maybe the extra 300, 400, 500,000 they get, and then they're not so bothered by the end of their brand, the end of their business, and their staff going somewhere else. But there are others, and I feel this is how I feel, because I've sold a business 10 years ago, and that business unfortunately was closed by the new owner 6 months later, and that hurts. And so if and when I'm done with this business, which I'm years away from that, I'm going to want to make sure this business continues, that it has a legacy, and that to me is more important than the money side of things, which is interesting. Let's look at the final sort of part of this before we finish the interview, and that's, you mentioned about retirement, and you don't believe in retirement. I don't really believe in retirement either. In fact, I can see one of the other advantages of selling your business slowly over 10 years to your colleagues is that you always retain a role, right? You're always going to be the chairperson or a consultant or something, because you're even when you're 89 and they're wheeling you in and sort of speaking loudly to you, you've still got a role within the business because you were the founder of that business. What do you think is, and again, bringing this back to all MSP owners, to all business owners, what do you think is the kind of thing that we should be working towards? Should it be something, like keeping meaningful work, or should we be looking to perhaps do consulting agreements at the end? Or do you see these days many people that want to do what feels like the old-fashioned thing of, I'm going to take the check at 65 and I'm going to run off to the beach? Because that just doesn't feel like a sensible thing anymore, or a real thing anymore.
Well, it exists, but those people aren't happy for very long. Retirement in the traditional sense, and you guys in the UK, because we don't speak English on this side of the pond, we speak American, but nonetheless, in the UK, as well as I do, that to retire is to go to bed. Well, if retirement is the long sleep, that sounds terrible to me. I'll pass. I think it needs to be a graduation. I think it needs to be to the next level, and I think we have to have a life of purpose. There are secrets of the happiest retirees, and we've worked with thousands of families in the U.S. and abroad, many of whom were entrepreneurs, business owners, MSPs, other folks who have done this kind of work that you're talking about. And The fact remains that the most successful retirees, the happiest retirees, have three things in common, Paul. One, they are debt-free. They don't owe anybody anything. And that is a financially liberating thing that so many never experience even in their lifetimes. And a lot of business owners are constantly updating either equipment or personnel or other things and taking new business loans. And I know it's leverage and I know there's tax benefits in different areas, but to not owe anyone a nickel is especially rewarding. Second thing is they're healthy. They've taken care of their health, and not just their physical health, mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, whatever it is. You don't wake up one day at 67 and say, I think I'll be healthy now. It really is a lifetime journey. And the third and most important is you have to have a reason to get out of bed every morning. You have to. It doesn't necessarily have to be for money, but it has to be more than golf. It has to be more than the beach. I defy anybody listening to this to take a vacation for 3 months and not be bored out of their minds, truly, because our sense of purpose, our identity is tied to not just who we are, but what we do and the people we talk to every day. You lose adult communication. You lose a sense of making a difference. And I think that's a very lonely and sad way to spend what could be half your adult life. I mean, we're living to 100.
Yeah.
If you quit at 65, which is an arbitrary number, and you live another 30 years, at least 20 plus of which could have been really productive, whether it was profitable or not is a whole other animal. But why do that to yourself? I don't get it.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. When I sold my business 10 years ago, I had 6 weeks off and I was bored after that. And okay, so I was 41, not 51, but oh my goodness, I was so bored. And I cannot think of anything worse than doing golf every day. What a terrible waste of your life, right?
Well, and I don't know about you. I don't know if you're a married guy or what, but my wife would not want me puttering around the house with nothing to do. I would drive her insane. It's like, go find something to keep you busy, because I would find projects for a little while and then I'd be climbing the walls.
Yeah, no, I bet. Eric, thank you so much for jumping onto this podcast and being on this video. Just tell us briefly, what do you actually do to help MSP owners with their financial planning and, working towards the future? And tell us how we can get in contact with you as well.
I'm happy to do that. Thanks for allowing me to. We help MSP owners and other business owners as well with monetizing their businesses, but also managing their personal and business finances in concert, because they are different. They're different balance sheets, they're different P&L statements, but they are still both important. And especially if you own 100%, they're completely yours. So it's important to not only do the right business planning, but also to do the right personal financial planning. And that means the estate planning, the risk management, some of the insurance work, some of the blocking and tackling that we don't always think about, the debt, the real estate, all the decisions that get made, and the family communication as well. We're easy to find. Website is bfgfa.com. For those interested in the Don't Retire Graduate concept, you can go to don'tretiregraduate.com or bfguniversity.com. And we have a ton of financial literacy resources, lots of free content, and have a lot of fun doing it.
For MSPs around the world, the MSP Marketing Podcast with Paul Green.